Hello, I'm Sarah Lister from Sheffield Digital, and today I'm talking to Tymon Solecki, who is a software engineer at Pendo. What does your day-to-day work involve?
Well, thank you. Pleasure being here. So everyday work. At 9:30 we've got our daily stand-up. So each person in our team talks about the blockers they have and how we can alleviate them. And then I try to do all my technical work before lunch. That involves writing code, mostly reading code, understanding the problem that I want to solve, designing the solution, stuff like that. Writing tests and actually doing the manual testing. Um, for lunchtime, I have obligatory walk. I decided that rule for myself that I have to go for a walk every day because otherwise I'm not going to get out of the house. And after lunch, I try to schedule all of the soft stuff. So meetings with product managers or designers, one-on-ones with my engineering manager, um, syncing up with our quality engineer, and doing code reviews for other people. So I would say that this probably is 80% of the stuff I do, and other things are, yeah.
Which skills are necessary for the work that you do?
Um, I thought that I would answer with only the technical skills, but the two most important things I included is passion. You need to be passionate about tech. Everything moves so quickly. The preferred libraries, the preferred frameworks change so much that no matter your current skill set, if you're gonna go half a year and not really try to figure out what's the next big thing, you're gonna start falling behind. So, as long as you like building stuff and pick up new tools as you go, that's probably the most important part of staying on course and building new things. The second thing I want to mention is resilience, and that comes from my transition from being a student to being a software engineer. As a student, you get to decide a lot of your own work. But when you work for a bigger company, there is a lot of people who are involved in the decisions being made. So from C-level suite through product managers, engineering managers to you don't get to decide on everything. And sometimes there are gonna be things that you won't like the company might change course or something. Some of the work must be adjusted, thrown away, or stuff like that. So if you can live through it, just don't take it personally and understand that those are business decisions and just try to do your best with what you're given. For technical skills necessary for work that I do, I would say that fundamentals are most important. You don't know what work you're gonna get, so if you know the fundamentals, it's gonna be easier to pick up the domain specific skills. And by fundamentals, I probably mean the very basic algorithms and data structures, paradigms of programming, so functional, object-oriented, basics of your language. Is it statically typed, dynamically typed? What is the basic syntax? So yeah, this is what I would put as necessary technical skills.
How did you learn these skills and get experience?
So university is one thing, and there is a lot of places you can read about universities. I don't think I have to say anything more about that. From the things that I've done that might be different to other people, I've been involved in competitive programming a little bit. So if you look for sites like Code Forces or Top Coder, um, you can see what kind of stuff it is. It's absolutely not necessary to get those skills, but it gets you comfortable with writing a lot of code. It's not good quality code, but you write a lot of it, and it helps you pass interviews as well. If you'd rather build something more permanent rather than do competitive programming, I used Free Code Camp. It's a non-profit organization that has literally thousands of hours of free content. And it's also in different domains, so it's either building responsive websites or designing algorithms or SRE. They have really a lot of stuff, and I would recommend it to everyone who wants to build some project rather than solve the, I guess, mathematical quizzes for competitive programming. Yeah.
Are there any skills that you've been learning on the job as such with Pendo?
Yes, there is. I think the biggest part is probably the mm, technical things that come with working in a bigger team. So if you're a student, you might be familiar that there exists a tool called Git, which is version control. You use it a lot when you're working in a team. You have to make sure that everything is explicit about the work you do, and all the changes are rigorous and are motivated by necessity. You cannot really add things that just because you feel like it's a better way to do it. You have to be able to justify all of your technical choices. So doing code reviews and setting a good granularity of how you review. You don't want to nitpick at every single thing that you do differently, because then no work is ever going to get done. But you also want to pick out all the things that could become problems later on.
Why did you decide to study computer science and AI? And maybe if you could also touch on why you chose to do that in Sheffield, please.
Yeah. So the decision was obviously while I was still in school. Before university in Poland, we go to high school, which I imagine is sixth form in England, maybe. And I was enrolled in a class which was specializing in maths and computer science and physics. So in one way, it was a very natural extension to pick a course that was adjacent to the stuff I was doing in high school. I actually think it's more important the fact that I decided to stay after my second year at university, I think is more important than the fact that I decided to study computer science and AI. Because those first years really give you a good overview of what kind of stuff is possible and what kind of stuff will you be doing later on. So yeah, I was really, well, I guess, what's the good way to put it? I think I really liked it. The stuff in computer vision specifically, the NLP, those things seemed like magic to me. And even though I've been doing programming in high school, it was totally different area and seemed very cool. So, as much as non-answer it is in some extent, because I liked it, I think that helped me spend a lot of time and a lot of effort to get better at it. I didn't touch on Sheffield, so I want to talk, I think, about Sheffield a little bit. Sheffield, well, first off, Sheffield was very generous in a way that it helped me sustain myself for the first few years at university. So there are some very good bursaries for students from underdeveloped areas to attend the university here. But also, the quality of teaching was very good, and for someone who's not from UK, you obviously hear about Oxford and Cambridge and maybe Imperial, because those are the most famed universities and everyone heard about them. But I would definitely advise to look past it. And Sheffield, I guess, Durham, Manchester is the names that you don't really hear. I know that it sounds crazy because probably for students here, everyone knows them as well. But if you're not from the UK, please look into the Russell Group universities as well as the very, very top ones.
Did you receive any support in getting a job related to your studies from the university?
Yes, so university has a career service, and as far as I know, it's not specific to Sheffield. I think most of the universities have this. And they can help you with making sure that your resume looks right and sounds right, and helping you to do the interview preparation. Yeah, it's very helpful to know that your CV was read by someone who does that stuff professionally, because when you first do it, you don't know what should be put on there, how much or how quote-unquote boastful you should be about that. And it's particularly helpful for people who have perpetual imposter syndrome, which I feel like probably most people, especially when they start out, have. So yes, definitely go to the university career service, and they guide you through all of that stuff. Apart from universities, there is some online communities which can help with that kind of thing, and I would point to the previously mentioned Free Code Camp, which has its own forums, I think. Yeah.
What do you value most about working at Pendo?
Um, I think that the answer has to be people. You get to work with a lot of people and a lot of really smart people. And it's definitely it's a substantial difference between just coding at your own pace uh, on your one person project and collaborating on something bigger. Um, so I'm gonna talk about other stuff, but people is the first one. Tech stack. We use very exciting tech stack at Pendo. We have both Angular, Vue, Golang, and Ruby because it's a byproduct of having a couple of different companies merged together, so three. But because of that, we get to work with a lot of technologies, and it's pretty interesting. It's a product that's pretty widely used, so the number of events that's being processed every day is pretty big. If you have any interest in distributed systems, it's a great company to work at for that reason because you have to scale that up. Um, what was what were I gonna say? Oh yeah, you're working on a big code base. So the advantages of that are that you get to learn how to do that, how to find things around, how to figure out why certain things were introduced and stuff. That also doesn't happen on your one person project. And then there's the opportunity to learn in many different domains. We have pretty a lot of collaboration between teams, which really helps you get at least a taste of how to work on a front-end team or a back-end team or a scaling team or a security team. Yeah, pretty much. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, that's great. And how does the company support your career development?
So we have regular meetups for both front-end teams and back-end teams, where we get to either present ourselves the stuff that we've been working on, or we get to learn from other people in the company on what kind of interesting problems they encounter in those domains. Then we have lunch and learn. We can take time in the week, and a lot of people do that, to prepare a small presentation for the lunchtime. It's usually 20-30 minutes, and it has the same kind of idea as the meetup for the front end and back end. We also have a fund for self-development. So I don't know what the exact fund is, but a lot of people use it to either take online courses, take nano degrees, or go to conferences, which I guess this year a lot of people did only online.
Yeah, okay. So, and have you actually worked in the office in Sheffield as yet, or have you just been working from home since you started?
So there was a brief period for like 2 weeks last summer, so July maybe 2020, that I was able to go to the office. The rest of the time I spent in this room, which is not perfect to work from home, but I think everyone has to deal with that, and it's very important to like set yourself all kinds of boundaries, so to like don't work past 5 or 5:30 or whatever. But yeah.
In case any student, any recent graduates or students at university are watching this, how long was the gap between graduating from university and getting a job related to your studies?
So I was very fortunate because I signed the offer for the job January 2020, which was 5 months before I graduated. Um, that's not to say that everyone does that. I have, of all of my friends from my courses, there was people who have signed their contracts a few months after graduation, anywhere from a year before graduation to almost a year after graduation. So yeah, it's really not a problem if you graduated and you haven't found a job yet.
What was in your approach that you think that helped you to get that signed off before you even graduated?
Yeah, so there are companies, different companies recruit at different times of the year, and specifically for graduate jobs, the timelines are sometimes pretty strict. So if you're interested in some particular companies, go and find out when they recruit for graduate engineers or graduate roles altogether. And it ranges, I think nowadays, all the way from like when you start your final year all the way until spring of the year you graduate.
And how did you find that out? Did you contact the companies directly, or did you find it on their website, or was it with help from the careers service, for example?
So I did a combination of looking on the career service. There was some jobs listed there. Looking on online job boards. So Indeed, Total Jobs, Hacker News, and probably a lot more. And just asking my other people on the course what kind of companies they applied to. I don't even remember how exactly I found Pendo, but it was one of those three.
Okay, I think that's really helpful, because that's three different ways that people can try if they would like to also follow a similar path as you. And is there any advice that you can offer to people who are interested in looking for a job opportunity like yours, particularly to students again or recent graduates?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I'm definitely in the camp that looking for jobs is a numbers game. uh, there is a lot of conflicting advice just because people think differently about it. And while I definitely think it is a valid approach to craft your cover letter to each job that you apply to, I chose a different way. I just prepared a lot and applied to a lot of places, usually not changing my CV. I think I have two, maybe three different versions of CVs based on what kind of job I applied to. So one for more machine learning oriented jobs, one for software engineering oriented jobs, and one for something else. So yeah, it's a number game for me, especially when you're early in your career. You have to apply to a lot of places. Battle your imposter syndrome when you apply. If you tick 2 out of 10 checkboxes on a job ad, I think that you're probably good enough. And it's especially if you don't have a background in computer science or in like programming and stuff. I've seen a lot of my friends being very self-critical and saying, well, I don't have any experience in this and that, so I wouldn't even apply for that job. And it touched me, but I feel like, especially if you don't have experience, you shouldn't worry about it. And yeah, just try to not take it personal that that you don't have those attributes that they list. They list an ideal candidate, and if someone has all 10 of those things that's listed on an entry-level job ad, they apply for mid-level position. Get used to rejections, and then don't take it personally. You're gonna get rejected from a lot. And it hurts, but each time it stings a little bit less. For those rejections, you can ask for feedback, but know that for various reasons they might not provide it. It's sometimes just they don't want to take any risks with like giving feedback, but sometimes they do give really helpful feedback about either the way you did things or what you should learn to apply for these jobs. For introverts like myself, I consider myself an introvert. So for people who don't like particularly showing of these skills or like I don't feel comfortable talking to people, practice. Grab a friend and practice behavioral questions with them. So answers to questions like, why do you want to work for my company? Or describe a situation where XYZ. Those kinds of questions you can train for them. And it's important that you train with reasons that are real. There is a lot of canned answers you can probably say to why do you want to work at my company, but try to figure out some cross sections of why you really want to work there, and work with that. There is a bunch of books that I have partly read or practiced with, which are, I think I did Cracking the Coding interview and Elements of Programming interviews. So check them out, but don't treat them as be-all end-all of interviews. So yeah, that's a lot of advice. Also, none of it is mine. It's all stolen from other people. So do your own research. Yeah, that would be the last piece.
That's fantastic. I think that's really helpful advice. And perhaps if you could send us the links to those books or just the titles of the books, and we can put those in the notes below. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.